coinage came late to the Roman Republic compared with the rest of the Mediterranean, especially Greece and Asia Minor, where coins were invented in the 7th century BC. The currency of central Italy was influenced by its natural resources, with bronze being abundant and silver ore being scarce. The coinage of the Roman Republic started with a few silver coins apparently devised for trade with the Greek colonies in southern Italy, and heavy cast bronze pieces for use in central Italy. During the Second Punic War, a flexible system of coins in bronze, silver and gold was created. This system was dominated by the silver denarius, a denomination which remained in circulation for 450 years. The coins of the Republic are of particular interest because they were produced by mint magistrates, junior officials who choose the designs and legends. This resulted in the production of coins advertising the officials' families for political purposes. Most of the messages on these coins can still be understood today. Before coinage. Before the introduction of coinage in Italy, the two important forms of value in the economy were sheep, from which the Latin word for money is derived, and irregularly shaped pieces of bronze known as aes rude, which needed to be weighed for each transaction. It is unclear when money became commonly used, but Roman tradition recorded that pay of the army began during the siege of Veii in 406 BC, and it appears that aes rude was the currency well before this. Toward the end of the 4th century BC, bronze began to be cast in flat bars which are known today, without any historical authority, as aes signatum. These bars were heavily leaded, of varying weights although generally on the order of 5 Roman pounds, and they usually had a design on one and later both sides. The actual function of aes signatum has been variously interpreted. Although a form of currency, they were not coins since they did not adhere to a weight standard. Rome produced its own aes signatum around 300 BC, which are distinguished by the inscription Romanom, and production continued to about the end of the First Punic War in 240 BC, overlapping some of the developments described below. Cast bronze coinage. According to Pomponius, a lawyer who lived during the 2nd century AD, the position of Tresviri Monetalis was established in 289 BC, but this date seems to be far too early, and if they did not come into existence during the Second Punic War, the formation of a formal college may not have occurred until some time after 200 BC. The 3 members of this committee were officially known as the Tresviri Argento Oro Flando Feriundo, a lengthy title that was almost always abbreviated to 3 VAAFF. Julius Caesar briefly raised their number to 4. According to Suidas, the mint was located in the Temple of Juno Moneta on the Capitoline Hill. By this time Rome was familiar with coinage, as it had been introduced to Italy in the Greek colonies of Metapontum, Croton, and Sybaris before 500 BC, and Neapolis, California 450 BC. Rome had conquered a large portion of central Italy, giving it large quantities of bronze, but little silver. A system of heavy cast leaded bronze coinage was introduced. These issues are known as aes grave by numismatists. Stylistically, the coins were distinctly Roman, and due to both their size and their being cast rather than struck, crude compared to the coinage elsewhere around the Mediterranean at the time. The standard coin was the as. The word is referred to a coin and also to a unit of weight. In fact, as could also mean any unit of length, area, and sometimes just the number 1. The bronze coinage was initially a fiduciary currency rather than a token currency, based on the liberal standard, where the as weighed 1 Roman pound with fractions in units of Roman ounces, with 12 unciae and a libra. The uncia was thus also both a weight and a coin of the weight. This changed when the weight of the aes grave was decreased to approximately 10 unciae. California 270 BCC. the start of the Second Punic War in 218 BC, finally falling to 1.5-1 uncie around 211 BC. In addition to the as and its fractions, multiples of the as were also produced. Fractions were much more common than as's and the multiples during the period of a's grave. By the time of the semi-liberal standard, the smaller denominations such as the uncia and samuncha were struck rather than cast. A variety of less common denominations were minted over time. Those found in Crawford are listed here. Introduction of Greek-style silver coinage. Greek-style struck bronze coins were produced in small quantity with the inscription Rho Omega Mu Alpha Iota Omega Nu around 300 BC. Only a handful of examples exist today. They are believed to have been produced on behalf of Rome by Neapolish, based on the similar style and weight with Neapol's own coinage, and are used to facilitate trade in the wake of the construction of the Appian Way, started in 312 BC. Rome entered into a war against Tarentum in 281 BC. The Tarentines enlisted the support of Pyrrhus of Epirus. It was in this context that Rome produced its first Greek-style silver didrachm with the head of Mars wearing a Corinthian helmet on one side and the head of a horse with the inscription Romano and a grey near behind. This coinage may have predated the AE's grave discussed above, but was minted and used largely in Magna Graecia and Campania. It was clearly part of a broader trend. Payment of Roman and Allied troops fighting in the Pyrrhic War appears to have been crucial in spreading the use of Greek-style coinage throughout the southern Apennine areas of Italy. This issue is today thought to have been minted in Neapolish because it was minted on that weight standard, not that of Metapontum, Tarentum, and other South Italian cities. This issue was thought earlier to have been minted in Metapontum because the grenier is the most common type on Metapontina coins and the Mars head is very similar to the head of Leucippus on an earlier coin produced there. A number of different coins were minted in increasing volumes over the next few years, but the first silver coin now thought to have been minted in Rome itself is the Hercules she-wolf didrachm. The date of this issue is likely 269 BC, as the devices on this coin refer to that year's consuls Q. Ogulnius LFAN, Gallus and C. Fabius CF. M.N. Pictor. Hercules, shown on the obverse his club and a lion skin tied around his neck, was the divine patron of the Fabii. Quintus and his brother Cnaeus Ogulnius had, as cura idola, prosecuted money lenders. Part of the proceeds were used to set up near the Ficus Ruminalis a statue of Romulus and Remus being suckled by the she-wolf as shown on the reverse. Some historians believe that these coins were valued at 10 asses, making them denarii. This assertion is based on the account of Pliny in the 1st century AD, where he states that the denarius was introduced in 269 BC. Most historians today, however, do not see this as a denarius, but another didrachm. This last and most other Roman coins were produced in small numbers until the introduction of the didrachm we refer to as the quadrigatus. The quadrigatus, produced in large quantity starting around 235 BC, was named after the reverse image of victory driving a quadriga and was produced for about 2 decades, becoming more and more debased during the Second Punic War. The denarius system, as introduced the denarius, which became the main silver coin of Rome for over 4 centuries, was introduced in 211 BC and produced in enormous quantity from the silver captured in the sack of Syracuse the year before. The denarius, valued at 10 asses as indicated by the mark 10 and weighing about 4.5 grams, was introduced as a part of a complex multi-metallic coinage. Also in silver was the half denarius, the quinarius, and the quarter denarius, the sestertius, all bearing a head of Roma on the obverse and a reverse of the Dioscuri riding with their capes behind. bronze asses, and the fractions continued to be produced to a standard of about 55 grams. This was very quickly reduced to a sextantal standard and, finally, an uncial standard of roughly 32 gms. By this time, asses outnumbered their fractions, perhaps because legionary pay was increased to the point where the as could become the principal component. In gold, there were 3 pieces worth 60 asses, 40 asses and 20 asses. All featured Mars' head on the obverse and an eagle with outspread wings standing on a thunderbolt on the reverse. The eagle is somewhat reminiscent of the eagle that had consistently been a symbol on Ptolemaic coinage since the very beginning of the century, and it has been suggested that Ptolemy IV Philopator may have provided gold for this issue to act as a counterweight to the involvement of Philip V of Macedon on the side of Carthage. The Victoriatus, another silver coin, was also introduced in large quantity at the same time. It seems to have been quite separate from the Denarius system proper, as X-ray fluorescence spectrometry has shown that these were produced to entirely different standards. While an analysis of 52 early denarii, quinaria, and sestertii showed a silver concentration of 96.2 plus or minus 1.09%. 19 Victoriata from the same period have highly variable fineness ranging from 72 to 93%. Early finds of Victoriata are primarily in southern Italy and Sicily, and it is thought that the Victoriatius with a weight of 3/4 of a denarius were used to pay non-citizens with experience of the Greek coinage system in the drum format to which they were accustomed, but with debased, overvalued coins. The quadrigatus didram, which had been retariffed to 15 asses, was removed from circulation almost immediately. Evolution. Weights and fineness. Over the next 40 years, the denarius slowly lost weight. The reason for this is unclear, but in the early days it may have been the ongoing pressure of the Second Punic War. Afterwards, the Roman state had a debt equivalent to 25 years direct taxation on Roman citizens. This was not fully repaid until Cn Manlius Vulsa returned with the spoils of Asia after the Treaty of Apamea. The weight was officially changed from 72 to the pound to 84 to the pound at that time. It remained relatively stable thereafter. The silver content during Republican times remained well above 90%, usually above 95%, with the exception of Marcus Antonius's later coinage, especially the massive legionary issue of coinage of 32-31 BC, just prior to the Battle of Actium, rumored to be silver from Egypt provided by Cleopatra. Evolution. Silver versus bronze. By about 140 BC the denarius was retariffed to 16 asses, indicated by 16 on the obverse of the denarius. This appears first on the coinage marked LIVLI, commonly dated to 141 BC. The clear marking with the number 16 was soon again replaced with an X, but often now with a horizontal bar through the center as shown in the second example on the left. This is often read as a monogram of 16 with all the letters superimposed. The retariffing is thought to have been a recognition of a relationship that had developed because of decreased as weights, both due to wear of old asses and to decreasing mint weights of newer ones. This meant that the quinarius was worth 8 asses, and the sestertius 4 asses. The new denarius to as ratio lasted for hundreds of years. At about the same time the unit of account changed from asses to sestertii. This may well be an indicator of inflation. The Victoriatus continued to circulate well into the 2nd century BC. Victoriata were later popular in places such as Cisalpine Gaul, where they circulated alongside drachma of Massalia. Evolution. Gold. The gold 60, 40, and 20 as coins were only minted for only a few years. Gold in general appears to have been used only as an emergency coinage. Gold coins reappeared in 82 BC when Sulla was gathering funds for the war against Mithridates VI of Pontus immediately after the financial strains of the Social War. Sulla's coinage is commonly considered the first aureus. aurei were minted in large numbers by Julius Caesar in preparation for a proposed war against the Parthia, and usage of the aureus continued to increase after the fall of the Republic. Coinage and political messages. Eventually a new reverse appeared, first lunar driving a bigger in 194-190 BC, and then victory driving a bigger in 157 BC, thought to refer to the final defeat of Perseus of Macedon at the Battle of Pydna by Lucius Aemilius Paulus in 168 BC. These victory, bigoti, became the most common type of denarius. Denarii were marked with special symbols from very shortly after their introduction, and soon monograms indicating the tresviri monetula were on the coins. In some cases the symbols are punning. The example reversed shown to the left is one such. A shell symbol appears above the horses along with the letters PVR below. The shell is thought to be a murex shell. This was the source of Tyrian purple, and this, along with the letters, is thought to refer to a furious pua purio. This type of reference to the moneyers became more and more explicit, and eventually developed into self-advertising to further the political career of the moneyers. Families who had already had members in the Senate were more likely to have further family members elected to political office. This was so much more likely that only a few consular novi homines are known to history. Advertising on coins was thus often about the moneyer's family. In the coin reversed shown on the right, the legend around the outside indicates that moneyer was then Fabius Pictor. The seated individual is wearing a cuirass, holding a spear in his left hand and an apex, the characteristic hat worn by the Flamens, in his right. At his side there is a shield inscribed Quirin. This is taken to refer to Q. Fabius Pictor, who was elected praetor in 189 BC and assigned the province of Sardinia by lot. He was also the Flamen Quirinalis, and because of this, Licinius Crassus, the Pontifex Maximus of the day, did not allow him to take the Sardinian office because of various taboos surrounding the Flaмен's person, and the need for the Flamen to perform certain rites in Rome. The Sardinian praetorship was exchanged for both the urban and peregrine praetorships, and N. Fabius Pictor remained in Rome. The entire incident was part of the political maneuvering of Scipio Africanus against his attackers, which included the Fabii. Over time, the politics of the day became more and more visible in the coinage. In 54 BC, the first triumvirate had control of Rome, and Pompey was its preeminent member. There were rumors that Pompey was to be made dictator. In this context, the coin on the left was a powerful political message. The moneyer, Marcus Junius Brutus, placed on the coin two figures from Roman history that he claimed as ancestors. Lucius Junius Brutus of the Junius gens, who was made the first consul of the Republic of Rome in 509 BC after he expelled Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, the last of the Roman kings, and Gaius Servilius Ahala, who killed Spurius Maelius, a knight who endeared himself to the populace of Rome by providing free grain during a famine, reputedly in a bid for seeking kingship. In 439 BC, Marcus Brutus was also known as Quintus Servilius Caepio Brutus, as he had been adopted into the gens Servilia, from which he was descended on his mother's side. In the face of famine in 57 BC, Pompey had been made a special commissioner to control the supply of grain. This included the control of all ports and trading centers for 5 years. There was earlier bad blood between them. Pompey had put down an earlier insurrection by Marcus Aurelius Lepidus in which Brutus's father had been involved. Pompey had had him executed. It was the opposition of Cato the Younger, Brutus's half-brother on his adopted family's side, to Pompey's requests for land for his veterans of the war against Mithridates that gave Pompey the incentive to be part of the triumvirate. Brutus was clearly making a pointed, uncompromising statement of opposition to Pompey and the triumvirate while praising his ancestors. In 44 BC, Julius Caesar was preparing for war with Parthia to avenge the defeat inflicted by the Parthians on Crassus at the Battle of Cara. To this end, an enormous variety of denarii and aurei were being minted in large numbers. The coin on the right is from January-February 44 BC. The Venus holding victory and a scepter on the reverse was a reference to the claim of the gens Julia to descend from Aeneas and thus Anchises, the goddess Venus. This was innocuous to Romans, but the obverse showing Caesar himself wearing the gold laurel wreath that the Senate had voted for him was an enormous departure from tradition and deeply offensive. While the coinage had been used to show ancestors, this is the first time that the head of a living Roman had been displayed on Roman coinage. It was widely perceived as part of a larger series of moves by Caesar to make himself king, and kings were anathema in Rome ever since the foundation of the Republic. Other coins minted at the same time bore the text Dict Qvart, indicating that Caesar had been dictator for 4 years running. A later version showed Dict Perpet. Caesar had been made dictator for life. He was assassinated by Brutus among others, on the Ides of March, 44 BC. The assassination could not revive the Republic. 2 years later, just prior to the Battle of Philippi, Brutus produced a coin celebrating the freeing of the Republic from Caesar's tyranny. The reverse showed 2 daggers flanking a pilus and the legend Id Mar. On the obverse, Brutus, the noblest Roman, had placed his own head. The Republic survived, by convention more than reality, until Octavian, Caesar's nephew and heir, was declared Augustus in 27 BC.